Okay, I am calling from Petaluma, Northern California, and I wanted to thank Doran and John and LB and Beryl for telling me about this and having me participate. And my question is about as a child, I had pretty bad migraine headaches, and I wasn't really sure where they came from, if I actually felt um, a little trapped or maybe overly stimulated. And I notice I do get migraines now when I feel overly stimulated. Like while we were doing this in the very beginning, PG&E was digging the sidewalk so that they could get to the pipes right outside my door for 4 weeks. And it's hard for me to kind of meditate when I'm really in that kind of pain, although I can lay down and relax my nervous system. So I wanted to find out if you have any ideas about migraines, headaches, um, things like that.
Not sure exactly what you mean by ideas, but I have some experience with that, both my own and people who are referred to the MBSR, stress reduction clinic for migraine headaches or headaches, usually from neurology.
Right.
So headaches are a very interesting kind of thing. And of course, migraine and tension headaches are very different physiology. But then there's also the interesting question with headaches of how metaphorical they are. A lot of people who come to MBSR with the diagnosis of headaches wind up having some kind of realization that they'll say things like, my whole life is a headache. That there are one headache after another in terms of, the kinds of situations they find themselves in, the family or everything else and so forth. So it's kind of like, in some sense, it's sometimes interesting that the headache metaphor may actually be in some kind of weird relationship with the actual physical experience of having a migraine or a tension headache. Now, all I can say is that after 8 weeks of the kind of training that we do and the kind of meditation practice that we do in MBSR, and this was astonishing to me to see it at first, because my mother suffered from migraine headaches for decades. And, it was very interesting for me to sort of watch that. And then all of a sudden they disappeared. That people's over the course of those 8 weeks, very often people would say the headaches have like disappeared or gone away or greatly reduced. And we would measure how much and stuff like that. So I always thought that was very interesting because, headaches may have various kinds of causes, as I said, but there may be some kind of way in which we can liberate ourselves from not just the metaphorical headaches, but the actual experience of having a headache by learning how to regulate our attention and how it manifests in the body. Of course, that changes blood flow and that changes brain activity, and that even changes brain connectivity and architecture. So nobody really knows what's going on yet from a scientific point of view. But that's one of the best diagnoses to be sent to MBSR for, because people actually get liberated from their headaches. And then some will say to me at the end, as soon as I cleaned up the metaphorical headaches in my life, my headaches went away. I'm not saying that's the case with you or anybody else, but there is this kind of interesting terrain that might be valuable to investigate.
Okay. And I think the other thing I was wondering about is your feeling on like stimulants like coffee and tea and alcohol and stuff like that, because it seems like all of those kind of rev up the nervous system. And mindfulness seems to me, it's kind of working with the nervous system to kind of not only make it aware, but actually kind of gently relax it.
Yeah, so you're asking me whether lifestyle changes in the direction of well-being and health are important in addition to practicing mindfulness meditation? The answer is, of course.
Yeah,
But again, as I've been saying about the meditation practice, very important not to fall into a kind of self-righteousness about I know how it should be for everybody else. Like this is the way to be healthy. For some people, caffeine is fabulous.
right,
And I go through periods of drinking coffee and then not drinking coffee. And I
right,
find that both of those periods in my life are wonderful whenever they happen. And the same with all sorts of other things. Again, it really has to do with not the thing itself, but how you are in relationship to it, which is the cardinal principle of mindfulness in the first place. That
right.
it's not the stress, it's how we're going to be in relationship to that stress.
Mm-hmm,
And now we have an enormous amount of um, flexibility around and possibility.
mm-hmm,
So that's why one of the reasons we say to people, excuse me, no matter what the diagnosis is that they come to see us for, that from our perspective, and they come with life challenging diagnoses, and we say, listen, from our perspective, as long as you're breathing, there's more right with you than wrong with you, no matter what's wrong with you. We're going
mm-hmm,
to pour energy in the form of attention into what's right with you. Let the rest of the hospital and the medical center and your medical team take care of what's wrong. And over 8 weeks, just see what happens. But you got to do your part. And that
right,
doing is not a doing, it's a being. It's like aligning yourself with the meditation practice. And then, of course, changing your diet, practicing yoga or other kinds of exercise, I mean, which is built into MBSR to begin with.
oh, okay.
And then diet, all sorts of things can contribute to that, but there's no one right way to do it. You have to
And
find
then
what's
like
right for you.
you also mentioned like that you do some yoga things. I was wondering, for those of us who are really stranded at home, most of us, if there's any way you could send out maybe a few forms that we could do, you know,
You,
just,
if you have the full catastrophe living, that's got both of my yoga sequences or you can find them on the web,
okay,
easy. The important thing is there's a chapter in a book that I think is entitled Yoga is Meditation. So
okay,
don't do yoga like, aerobic exercise. The suggestion is that that's not to say you can't do it fast if you want to, but do it with 100% attention, with 100% awareness, as much a mindfulness practice as lying still in the body scan or sitting up in some posture or other.
okay,
But there's all tons of stuff on the web, not just my own stuff, but the important thing is to integrate it with everything else that you're doing, because every posture you adopt is a yoga posture, and it only becomes a yoga posture when you wake up to it, when you're aware and embodied in a certain way, and
right.
not attached to perfection or looking a certain way or getting a certain feeling or outcome from it. But I practice, my body's down on the floor every single day. And I've been encouraging all of you to
Yeah,
practice in that kind of way from the moment you wake up in bed and then out of bed. But there's something
yeah.
about that that's incredibly powerful, but hearing it from somebody else doesn't help at all. So
Right.
thank you, Marcy. I really
Thank you
appreciate your
so
question.
much. Okay, bye.
Bye bye.